The peace signed after the First Punic War had left Carthage in a difficult situation. It is obliged to pay tribute, but has less territory from which to draw resources. They ask their mercenaries to give up part of their salaries. This provokes revolts that are put down by the generals Hamilcar and Hannon. Another rebellion of mercenaries seizes Sardinia from the Carthaginians and asks Rome for protection, which sends an expedition to the island. Carthage protests, and Rome declares war. Without a fight, Carthage renounces Sardinia and has no choice but to cede Corsica and accept the payment of more tribute. This causes Carthage's desire for revenge to grow. The Carthaginian Republic focuses its expansion in Hispania, rich in resources such as minerals and oil. In 237 BC, Hamilcar disembarked in what is now Cadiz and for years extended his dominions. After the death of Hamilcar, his son-in-law Asdrubal takes over. He founds Carthage Nova and continues the expansion up to the Ebro River. Rome sends an embassy demanding not to cross it. They accept. When Asdrubal dies, Hannibal, son of Hamilcar, proclaims himself leader of the army. As a young man, he had sworn eternal hatred for Rome. Already as general, Hannibal consolidates the lands to the south of the Ebro, attacking the last important independent city, Saguntum, 170 kilometers to the south of the Ebro. They ask Rome, their ally, for help. Rome demands Carthage not to attack it, but it does, since it does not violate the agreement that fixes the Ebro as a limit. After 8 months of siege, Saguntum falls. Rome does not intervene, but sends a delegation with an ultimatum. Either they surrender Hannibal or war. War. Hannibal's plan is to take the fight to Italy. In 218, he crosses the Ebro with some 80,000 infantry, 10,000 cavalry, and 37 elephants. He crosses the Pyrenees and Alps unopposed and reaches the Po River, defeating or uniting to his cause the Gallic tribes he encounters. In the Ticino and Trebia rivers, he defeats the Romans, which makes him add more Gauls, already a majority in his army. He continued south and had to cross some marshes. At this point, there was only one elephant left in the army, on which Hannibal rode, who had lost an eye, probably due to an infection. While the consul Flaminius was moving his army along the shore of Lake Trasimene, he was ambushed. It is a slaughter in which 15,000 Romans die. The Senate, alarmed, appoints a dictator for 6 months, Quintus Fabius Maximus, nicknamed the Timer, for following a defensive strategy, avoiding direct fighting. The Romans prevail in the Tyrrhenian Sea, preventing Hannibal to reinforce and also cross the Ebro. Hannibal has a clear road to Rome, less than 150 kilometers from the Trasimeno. However, he heads east and besieges the city of Spoletium without success, so he continues south. He occupies Cannae, a city with large grain reserves. There he leads an unprecedented Roman army with 8 legions, which, according to Polybius, doubles in number to the Punic, but suffers a disaster. 6,000 Carthaginians and 70,000 Romans die out of a total army of 80,000. This is how Valerius Maximus describes the situation. The disaster of Cannae plunged our city into such tremendous confusion that Marcus Junius Pera, being at the head of the Republic as dictator, the weapons of the enemies, which remained nailed to the temples as an offering to the gods, were taken away to be used in the imminent battle. Children who were not yet citizens took up arms, and even 6,000 soldiers were enlisted, among debt slaves and those condemned for capital crimes. Hannibal's cruelty, perhaps exaggerated, increased the terror among the Romans. Hannibal, whose courage lay mainly in his cruelty, crossed his troops across the river Bargello by building a bridge made of Roman corpses so that the land would experience the fateful advance of the Carthaginian infantry as Neptune had previously experienced that of his fleet. Hannibal himself was leaving behind Roman prisoners who were exhausted by the burden and the road, but not before cutting off their toes. Those whom he had taken with him to his camp, he ordered by pairs of brothers or relatives and forced them to fight with the sword, and he did not get enough of blood until from all of them came out a single victor. The situation was desperate. The Romans themselves saw this moment as a clash between two opposing universes in which the hegemony of the known world was at stake, as shown by this speech of the consul Gaius Terentius Veron, quoted by Livy, in which he tries to convince the rulers of Capua to help him. What is left for us after Canis? Fortune has left us nothing. Infantry, cavalry, arms, ensigns, horses, and men, money, provisions, perished at the battlefront or the next day when the two camps were lost. The Carthaginian, our enemy, brings with him soldiers from the farthest ends of the earth, from the straits of the Atlantic and the pillars of Hercules, not even natives of Africa, who know absolutely neither law nor condition nor almost human speech. To these, rough and savage by nature and by custom, their own chief made them even more ferocious, building bridges and dams by piling up human corpses and teaching them to feed. One feels ashamed even to say it, on human flesh. Who that was born in Italy would not find it odious to see and have as masters those who have fed on these horrible delicacies, that it is sacrilege even to touch them, and to receive laws from Carthage, from Africa, and to consent that Italy should be a province of the Numidians and of the Mars. However, Capua, second city of the Italic Peninsula, allies with Hannibal with the desire to take revenge for the Roman conquest. It is Hannibal's finest hour. The Carthaginian Senate, despite the opposition of the aristocratic faction of Hannan against Hannibal, sends reinforcements to Italy. Fabius Maximus is re-elected consul, and the war of attrition is resumed. The Carthaginians take Tarentum and ally with Syracuse in Macedonia. Fighting continues in Hispania, Sardinia, Campania, and Sicily without significant advances until Rome takes Syracuse. In 211, Hannibal marches by surprise towards Rome. He establishes his camp 3 miles away, and his cavalry arrives next to the gates. According to Livy's account, the Numidian horsemen who had gone over to the Roman side had to cross the city to get faster to the place where the Carthaginians were approaching, unleashing chaos. When some saw them galloping down from the citadel and the capital, they began to shout that the Aventine was taken. This caused such confusion and such running that the terrified crowd would have rushed en masse to the outside of the city had not the Carthaginian camp been there. They sought refuge in the houses and attacked their own with stones and throwing objects, taking them for enemies as they crossed the streets. It was not possible to stop the tumult and undo the misunderstanding because the roads were crowded with peasants and cattle dragged en masse towards the city by the sudden alarm. The cavalry combat was favorable and the enemies were repulsed. The next day, Hannibal crossed the river Anio and formed his troops in battle order. The consuls did not refuse the combat. When both armies were prepared for the fate of the battle in which the victor's trophy would be the city of Rome, a torrential rain mixed with hail caused such confusion in both formations that they retired to the camps almost unable to hold their arms, with as much fear as they had of the enemy. Also, the next day, a similar squall separated the contenders, lined up in the same place. As soon as they took refuge in the camps, the atmosphere became serene with a surprising calm. The Carthaginians attributed a religious significance to this circumstance, and they say that Hannibal was heard to say that sometimes he lacked the will and sometimes the luck to seize the city of Rome. It is one of those moments that could have changed the course of history, and it remains one of the greatest enigmas why Hannibal did not attack Rome. The city had hardly any soldiers to defend it, but Hannibal decided to move away to the south. Perhaps the cause was religious, or perhaps the walls seemed impregnable, considering that he had not been able to besiege Spoletium shortly before. Shortly thereafter, Syphax, king of western Numidia, until then a vassal state of the Carthaginians, rebelled against them, and they had to send troops to control him. Scipio, later called the African, takes command and in 209 conquers Carthage Nova, the main Punic city in Iberia. Carthage sends reinforcements to Italy by land, but the Romans stop them. In 206, Scipio wins in Ilipa, making the end of the conflict in Hispania. The struggle moves to the sea. The Punic fleet suffers several defeats that are practically its end. Scipio lands in Africa, Syphax now supports the Carthaginians, and Massinissa, king of the other great Numidian tribe, supports the Romans. Rome subdues some cities, and Carthage signs a treaty whereby Hannibal has to leave Italy and Carthage gives up its possessions outside Africa. However, when Hannibal returns from Italy, he breaks the armistice. The decisive battle takes place at Zama near Carthage in 202. The Romans win and impose an even harsher treaty than that of the First Punic War, with heavy tribute and a ban on declaring war without permission. Hannibal himself negotiates this peace. He then promotes a law whereby the oligarchs must pay the tribute. The aristocratic faction accuses him of having contacts with Antiochus III, king of the Seleucid Empire, and Rome demands his surrender. Hannibal goes into exile and tries to help Antiochus III in a war against Rome, but ends up having to commit suicide. As a result of the Second Punic War, Rome is the great power of the Mediterranean. That's it for today, but don't worry, we're just getting started. Thanks for joining this historical ride, and get ready for more fun facts and stories in the next video. See you soon, time travelers.